I did promise it, and it had to happen, didn't it? It is time to find out what the future of generative artificial intelligence looks like in legal and legal ecosystem. And delighted that we've got, I've got joining me 3 representatives of big beasts, the organisations that is obviously, of the legal profession to give their different perspectives on this one. We've got Greg Baker. Greg is Global Head of Practice Innovation at Linklaters and leads a multidisciplinary innovation team and a group of practice embedded innovation lawyers. I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about what that means practically. We've also got David Rowlands. David is the Global Head of AI, very new Global Head of AI at KPMG. This is a new role for KPMG, although David, you were at KPMG before in another role. And David is helping to drive and implement KPMG's AI strategy, of course, applying the technologies where appropriate to both client engagements and internal use cases as well, the employee experience. And also, last but by no means least, we've got Alex Graydon. Alex is Assistant General Counsel at Thomson Reuters, she has over 25 years experience in the legal profession overall, starting out her career as a corporate and commercial legal knowledge manager for a city law firm. And since then you've been with Thomson Reuters in one form or another, Alex? Is that right?
I have, yes. Well, I came into Thomson Reuters in business, then went out into private practice, qualified, did a stint in private practice, and then I'm back in TR now for my most recent stint of 20 years.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to try and get through a lot, but very much want to give time for you to ask your own questions. I'm sure you'll have plenty once we've started talking, so I'm going to be mindful of doing that. But to kick us off, let's start with an assessment of, before we look to what the next year might bring, an assessment of where you are with generative AI at this point, both from the different perspectives, law firm, general counsel, and of course an external advisor, and the management challenges that have sort of you've seen most you've grappled with, I suppose, and also the sort of successes that you've seen over the last year and a bit since this has been such a hot topic. And as we've got a room full of law firm representatives, I might start with you, Greg.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. So I think it's fair to say 2023 was our year of experimentation. I think it was for a lot of people. It was understanding what this emerging technology could do, how it might disrupt our existing technology, what it meant for the AI we already had in some of our law firms, and also what were the most compelling, most immediate available use cases that we might want to start looking at. So it was experimentation. We did a lot around deliberately running multiple POCs, multiple pilots of various different products, some of which may have been now TR's products, and also did some of the building of our own solutions as well. Nothing too major, largely what a lot of law firms have done, which is building a layer on top of Microsoft Azure genAI sort of implementation. But it was really about driving our people to experiment with this in as broad a way as possible so that we could capture the use cases and start understanding where do we want to actually start building products and providing solutions to people. So that was 2023.
Okay, great, thank you. And David, not perhaps slightly unfair because you just joined, you just took on your role as head of AI at the end of last year, but what stood out since then? What have you been developing for KPMG?
Yeah, of course, KPMG is similar to a law firm in many of its aspects, but and it indeed has a small law practice of its own. But the big difference for us is that we're implementing AI into our clients' environments, into their situations. But and I headed up our consulting practice for 7 years. I wanted to do this job. This was the only job that I would have given that role up for because it's a genuinely transformative technology and it's going to apply in so many different situations, which we might touch on later. But interestingly, clients have never been more interested in what we've been up to on our own journey, and I think they might be on yours. And actually, I should encourage everyone to think about that. Your experiences are relevant to clients. If you think about our sector, you've got lots and lots of very, very bright people knowledge workers in effect in all sorts of different countries operating in regulated environments, and so clients are finding that very, very interesting. And so broadly where clients are at the moment, what they're telling me and asking me to empathise with is they're stuck on a number of things. One is business case. It's very, very hard to pin down total cost of ownership and the benefits case of AI. You don't know quite how that's going to shape up and how people are going to reply. You've got a question about people and adoption. You've got a question about getting started and the technology. You were touching on it, Greg, but a lot of clients don't have the fundamental technology infrastructure, cloud infrastructure to be able to do this. But most of all, it's a question of trust, trusted AI, and all clients are on a journey on that. How do you convince yourself and your stakeholders and that you can be trusted in your use of AI in all situations and in all places? So that's where clients are right now, dealing with those kind of things. So they have, it's similar to what you were saying, they've had a go, but now when we try and make it a bit more industrial, those problems are getting a bit sticky.
Thank you. And Alex, from the perspective of the Office of General Counsel, what are the sort of successes or the key pillars that you've had to put in place in the last, say, 12 to 18 months?
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess we're in a slightly different position in the sense that, or I'm in a slightly different position because I'm a corporate legal team in an organisation that is selling the AI products to you and to other corporate legal departments. And so we wear two hats really. We are using and testing and providing product feedback to our product organisation. And so we've spent a lot of time looking at, and still are, looking at the various use cases that we can put the Thomson Reuters AI products to. But we're also part of the organisation, and there is a big push for all functions to be using AI. We have an internal AI program where every function leader has a representation and is identifying use cases. And we're doing both. We're doing the use cases for the TR products, but also looking at the more general AI tools out there. So we're using Microsoft Copilot. We are looking at ChatGPT. We have a safe environment where the lawyers, but also everyone in the organisation can go and test things out. So we have a very structured approach to trying to get everybody to use AI, both in the organisation as a whole and within the GCO.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, now obviously I want to come on to talk about what this year has in store, if possible. So, what does the roadmap, the strategy, if that's the right word, I'm sure it will be in your cases, look like for the year ahead? Earlier, Antoinette was talking about wearing, your visionary hat and what milestones might be in place. And I think that sort of milestones is probably a good word. Have you got particular points whereby you want to see certain outcomes from your experimentation, Greg?
Yes, I think there are a few layers. So our internal chatbot, to give one example, which was sort of internally built, on the Azure platform, we'd said at the start of the year we want to triple the number of people using it, and so we had some metrics in place, really for the innovation team and my innovation guys in terms of driving adoption. And we're largely seeing that. We've had about half the firm use it now. I think since January we've had about 160,000 queries through it. So we're seeing that growth. But that's across a range of use cases, because really our chatbot is our way of getting our people to engage and learn about how to use generative. For a lot of our people, it's a different way of interacting with technology. They're having to, we hear a lot about the prompt engineering, but actually for a lot of people, just writing in plain language into something and getting a response back is very different to what we've taught them to do in the past. So that it's really about exposing it to as many people as possible and getting them comfortable. Over the course of last year, we went from probably looser, unstructured experimentation through to a much more structured approach. So last March, my team ran an ideas campaign globally, and we just gathered in ideas and use cases from people. And that was at a time when people didn't really understand fully yet what it was good at, what it wasn't good at. So it was helpful, it gave us a bit of structure, but over the course of 2023, we got more and more detailed. So we started looking at specific practice areas, we started looking at what it was good at, hours that could be saved in particular tasks, etc. Very, very detailed. And we've built ourselves a roadmap for 2024 with about 7 key use cases, and they range from legal research, which is largely vendor-led, so that will be working with the likes of TR and others, LexisNexis, all the way through to sort of the drafting, due diligence, and the more sort of bespoke for us. And really our strategy has been around building or buying components that we can effectively layer on top of each other to build out those solutions. Because the idea is by the end of this year, we will have specific solutions for those high value use cases in the hands of lawyers. I guess one thing that's really, I've done a lot of deploying legal tech and piloting solutions within Linklaters, and generally lawyers like to have something that's perfect. You know, you tend to show them something and they'll say, oh, it doesn't do that. And I said, please, let's focus on the 90% of the problem that it is solving for you. We have found that genAI has been a real driver in changing that. So when we built our chatbot, a lot of the time it didn't work. It broke. We had a big warning on the top saying sometimes the servers are overloaded, sometimes the link with Bing won't work. And people have really become quite accepting of that. So it's been a real shift for us, is we feel we can get MVPs out into people's hands quickly and not freak them out and they're never going to touch it again. We've sort of changed mindsets a bit. So I guess we're building on that this year.
That's a tech expression, isn't it? That's minimal viable product.
It is. That's the one, yes.
I was just going to comment on something that you said there around kind of getting people used to using the prompts. And I think if you haven't started, or your teams haven't started using any of the sort of the chatbots, I would really encourage it, because it's a mind shift change about how you ask the questions and then how you can iterate on the questions. I was doing it only last night, and it really is, you know, we pitch our AI like, you know, your AI, it's your assistant, and it really is like talking to an assistant, and you can say, can you explain that in a different way? Can you put an emphasis on this or that? And I've not been using it for a long time consistently, but I find now that I don't even want to do an internet search in the way that I used to do it. I want to ask those. You're agreeing with me, I can see.
Do you end up talking to him?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for that.
I
That
got-
was nearly right.
yes.
Can you do something?
And I go back and I sort of say, no, I'm sorry, you're mistaken. And there was one night I was having an
Always say
argument with
please to the chatbot.
Yeah.
I take it step by step because
Yes.
it's my favourite one.
Yes. I find, and I get very cross, you know, obviously we've got Alexa, but with my kids who are rude, and I'm like, no, please, say please and thank you. And I'm always very polite, and it's a machine. Anyway, so my only point really is get using it, because it will actually start to shift your mindset, and you will get more out of these tools if you, if you're using them in this way.
And how about use cases for Thomson Reuters, Thomson Reuters legal department? Have you seen certain things, certain opportunities come through that you're keen to capitalise and measure this coming year?
I have. It will come as no surprise that it's mainly around contract negotiation. Our GCO is about 100, and we have 6 practice groups, of which about half is in the customers and commercials practice group, which is the one that I'm in. And we do a lot of contract negotiations with our customers like yourselves and with partners. And I really see that as a very ripe area for AI. And, you know, self-serve, before AI, I mean, this has sort of exploded since March and March last year. And before that, we had like automation, self-serve, and I kind of feel that that's all got a little bit eclipsed by AI. But you've got, we're still building out templates, automated templates for our business users, so that they can self-serve. But as far as our lawyers are concerned, I see great advantages in being able to review contracts against playbooks, have fallbacks offered up, narratives to go with your return draft, obligation management, post-contract reviews, kind of being able to work out what you agreed and what obligations flow from that. So yes, I mean, I've seen various statistics around sort of improving that sort of productivity around contract negotiation from 20% to 50%. We are looking at a way to sort of to measure that productivity. I don't have the answer yet, but I need to, because it's one of my goals for this year, so that we can measure that productivity. But I mean, I'd like to see sort of at least a 20 to 25% improvement in our sort of contracting. I think the other areas you mentioned earlier, chatbots, again supporting the business. All of our practice groups would like a chatbot with our business to deal with the low-hanging fruit, the questions that we're always asked, the questions that are repeat questions. So that's really high on my wish list from a technology perspective. But it's got to be good. I mean, I've used various chatbots, I'm sure we all have in our private lives, or even in sort of corporate ones. I won't not mention any names, but technology that we have, and actually it never answers the question, and it offers you up answers that are completely irrelevant. And again, that's why I'm getting into an argument with the chatbot, which is completely pointless. But yes, so the chatbot, and then the third area, which is one that I've been exploring recently, is we have it's around data, but we have quite good data reporting. But actually, I'm more interested in the substance of the request. So we have a legal front door where all of our work comes in. We report on which business line, which region, what type of work, what the volume is, etc., which is all really, really good data. And again, in this AI world, I don't forget that all of that is still really important to be doing. But beyond that, I want to know what those requests are all about. And so we had over 10,000 items of requests that came into our practice group last year. And over last week, I've been downloading those, and I've been getting them summarised by I was using our product, like we should, Co-Counsel, to try and work out all the work categories and drill down into some of the detail there. So for me, some of that sort of operational bit around what the work is, and should we be doing it? Should it be picked up by certain sort of groups? Like, would you have contract analysts doing certain work as opposed to, say, more expensive lawyers? So that analytical piece is really important to me.
Thank you. David, what about KPMG? What sort of milestones have you got in place, or pipeline of things that you're going to try to bring to market over the course of the next financial year?
Yeah, so we have some output metrics, particularly around revenue, as you can imagine, and then we've got some input metrics around the sorts of thing Alex was talking about a moment ago, around getting AI into people's hands. We've got 270,000 ambassadors in front of our clients, and innovation happens in the field if we can get that technology into people's hands. And I think AI is going to show up in three broad different ways in our clients. And the first is, and this is the thing, the technology is like nothing we've seen before, and it's showing up in multiple different ways. And the first way is around agents and personas, and that category would be knowledge agents and sitting over databases that you can access. Your practitioners can access this a lot quicker. But very quickly, those agents you would invite to a meeting, and they would listen into the meeting, an AI person in the meeting, and so we're starting to think, do we put them on the rate card? You'll have some humans on the rate card, you'll have some AI people in the meeting and on the rate card, and the client will ask us, and then there'll be specialists in tax or specialists in whatever they are, and they'll be able to provide answers in the context against an incredible database. And then you can then go a bit further. Would that agent perhaps get invited to a client meeting and there's no KPMG people there? You know, how would you then bill for that, and what would that look like? And now we're not ready for that yet. But this is where this agent type case is going to go into those kind of situations. But you know, we put it into, you know, that's KPMG. We put those kind of technologies into a big supermarket that you will all use, and the interaction is better than a human is, because it's more empathetic, got more time, it's better educated, frankly, and then you're going, you know, you listen, and it's just more polite. It's just had more patience, because it's got limitless patience. And so somebody rings up, and this is a voice conversation that I'm about to give you. I listened in on this one. So a phone call comes in. When you delivered the bananas, they were all squashed. And the chatbot goes back and says, I'm really sorry to hear about your bananas. And then in that moment, it's going to the back office, and it's accessing a refund. And then it says, I will get that refunded. There, that's done. And the person on the human on the phone, you can just hear the wind going out of their sails and go, oh, okay, thank you. and so that's totally empathetic. It's got the answer that the end customer wanted. And then, so that's what's going to happen around agents. And in your sector, that's very interesting. You know, you're going to put AI over the top of individuals, and you've got an incredibly diverse set of people, and they're superpowered by AI. And I don't think that outcome is predictable. That, you know, diverse people with an incredibly different technology set, what are you going to get? You don't really know. But that's the exciting bit about it. The second case that AI is showing up in is around enterprise. And so this is more about processes, and I think a lot of you will be interested in here. So it's going to help smooth the processes. It's going to fulfill the promise of our back office systems that they never really made over the last 30 years. And so we were implementing this, really it's machine learning rather than generative AI, over into our clients over, let's say, the three-way match. And then we're taking accounts payable teams to zero people, because the match is now more intelligent, more thoughtful. And of course with KPMG, then we go and do ESG reporting on the database that we get out of that. So you're going to get AI over the enterprise, over processes, and make that a lot more smooth. And then the third area where it's going to show up is in the form of industrial AI. So this is where, again, it's not necessarily generative, but you're going to solve some really big, knotty problems in an industry, in a sector. And so things like in health and life sciences, they can synthesize data so that their R&D process this is $1 billion problem for health and life sciences. That can be shortcuts. You can create the data, you can synthesize the data, even if you don't have it. And so you can turn the empirical process on its head. Or in healthcare, we're building resource allocation models for where you get a doctor and nurse, so you can get a bed, or you're going to get the medicine, or you're going to get the ambulance turning up. And that resource optimization is $1 billion problem. In banking, we're closing the gap between external regulations, internal policy, the controls set at incredible scale. We're just pulling those different situations together for big banks. These are problems that are only going to show up in that sector. They're $1 billion problems, because each sector has $1 billion problem. And AI is really going to be specific, and the technology is going to be tailored into that problem. So 3 different ways. I mean, in yours it would probably be, or if you're anything like when I was running our consulting business, resource forecasting, and trying to get through that over a 12-month cycle, and trying to understand that would be a $1 billion problem in your sector. So anyway, those are the 3 types of ways that it's actually going to show up, I think.
Does the AI know that so-and-so's phoned up 4 days on a trot saying that the bananas are squashed?
Yes, and that's the amazing thing, which it can see patterns in those kind of things that a human can't. So even when the person says, I want, because they are aware they're talking to a computer, so they get the choice, do you want to talk to a human? Even when the human comes in, because of that dynamic, the AI at this supermarket where we put the technology in, is scraping all the relevant information, and it's suggesting the next thing for that human to say, the next best action, based on the fact. So it'll say, well, I see you seem to have a problem with your bananas, sort of thing, rather than continually throwing refunds. Yeah, try some apples. Yeah. Have you thought about apples, sir?
That's fascinating. There's so much to it. Predictably, I've only got through 2 of my questions, and I've got lots more, but I do at this point want to do what I promised and throw it open to the floor in case anything that's been said so far has prompted questions. Do make yourself known and take the opportunity.
Hi. What advice do you give to law firms who haven't perhaps started any AI speculative investigation or anything else? Because we're a supplier to the market, and there's a massive chasm between people who are really pro-AI, who have done a lot, have started implementing it, to those who have done absolutely nothing and are burying their heads in the sand, and this time in 2 years are probably going to be like quite far behind.
I can start that. I mean, I think it's very difficult. I don't feel there are many firms that have made absolute choices on single solutions that they're going to go for. I mean, if you look at what we've got, we've got Copilot in the building. We've run a series of experiments and continue to do so with Co-Counsel. We've got our own chatbot, and we're working with Google on a knowledge piece. So we're deliberately looking both across lots of different providers, and both on the business teams and on the practice side. So you can start experimenting quite quickly. I think you just need to start that experimentation. But I personally don't feel like you're in a position where everybody else has made a decision, they've plumped for what they're going to do, and it's going to be there available now. I think there's still a bit of time, but there are firms out there that do have, solutions out there in people's hands. But just start small and build up.
I mean, I'd add to that, which is, as a supplier to the marketplace, that I would encourage law firms or anybody who wants to try it, to go for a trial, a proof of concept first, and try out lots of different products and see how they compare. I think it's really important to test it with your data and with what you want to do with it, so that you can actually see whether it's meaningful. I mean, it's a debate we always have in-house about this, about how we, what do we offer our customers. I mean, I'm a strong advocate for that proof of concept using your own data, so that you can understand what the results are and see that it's meaningful or is missing the mark.
Just going to say as well, when from my sort of innovation team, we've always been very rigid in, you start with your use case, you start with the problem, you start with the challenge. We run everything through an ideas hub. We run the funnel. We gather these ideas. With genAI, we've deliberately flipped that around because it's so broadly applicable. It's so multi-purpose. We've actually just said, no, which is why we built the chatbot and just got it out to people. We said, we want you to get used to it and understand what's possible first, and then we come up with the use cases. They do need to come, but you can flip that around a bit.
I think I'd agree from a personal experience. The more I've used it, and I'm talking about kind of using our products, the more I've used it, the more I realise what it can do, and the more I try, and actually I get sucked in. I honestly found myself over the weekend doing some of this because I was quite sad. I know my husband was away, so he couldn't have a go at me. But you get sucked in by the capabilities. So yeah, get started.
David, you started with this principal framework, or that's what you've brought in since you were appointed head of AI, but presumably the work started before that, I suppose.
Yeah, we have a holistic framework with principles, sort of like everyone was saying. We want to be clear on how we go to market, what we're selling, how we're delivering it. We've got a whole work stream on how we think the entire business model is going to be disrupted, and I think that is important. It's a bit different from your question, which is how do you get started, but there is a risk that you increment from where we are today and then something's going to blast the whole process or the whole function or the whole organisation out of the market. So we're trying to think, what is the future of professional services? And then of course we're eating our own, drinking our own champagne. And then you've got to think about risk, you've got to think about legal, you've got to think about data and technology and alliances with organisations such as TR. And so that whole framework is what I lead. It's a transformation. And so the first thing I would do if I was a law firm is I'd appoint a head of AI. And that head of AI should be ExCo, or like I was on a UK ExCo for 8 years, or someone who's Exco challenging and Exco challenging. It's a massive transformation.
Another question? Yeah.
Thank you. There's no doubt AI is an exciting topic and piece of technology. I guess my question is around the people strategy intertwining with the AI strategy. So how do you see that specifically for Dave? Because I think, well, I know KPMG is a lot further than most of us in the room in terms of our AI adoption.
Love your question. Love your questions. Thank you. We knew right from the get-go we needed to be fast, but the thing, and so we wanted to get, what our definition of that was, get it in people's hands as fast as possible. So your people thing was centric to our strategy, and we wanted to get people trying it and innovating in the field, and we knew that they would represent us really well every day in front of our clients, and we knew that they would come up with innovations that we could not develop centrally. And so we trusted the people. That's an interesting thing to do. And demographically, young people use this way more than old people, and that it's natural to them. So okay, I won't tell that story. But then what we then did was you have to tool them all, and they have to be able to do it in a trusted manner. And so on the 24th of January 2024, we did 24 hours of AI training. So round the clock training for everyone in the world. You know, how do you use GPT in a safe way? How are you going to use Copilot? How are you going to use developer tools? But how are you going to do that in a way that demonstrates to everybody in KPMG, to our regulators and to our clients that you can do that in a trusted way? And so this immersion, you know, really, then you give them a badge. So this is the thing. Training people and then giving them a badge is a thing. It's like this currency of young people is that nowadays. So give them a badge at the end of the training. They will show up. Yeah, it's like it was in the So, but the main thing in all of that I've just said is trust people to do something great with this, as long as you give them the tools and the training to be able to innovate with.
Yeah, we had a lot this morning about the need to grow people alongside your sort of larger objectives for growth. What about how does that work? Link later.
I think it links to the question about how do you start as well. Is that you'll have natural enthusiasts, you'll have new joiners that have been using it in their law school work 6 months previously. You'll have people that are just naturally, engaged in this, and we spend a lot of time finding those people, training them up and giving them skills to then spread that throughout the practice. And actually for some of our junior lawyers, skilling them up on what we're doing as a firm, what the strategy is, what are the tools we've got, giving them advanced access. So we've got like a QA version of our chatbots, an advanced version that's in testing. So we give some of our champions access to that so they can see what's coming. But then we get them with some of our partners talking to clients. So it's a big role for them. They get to represent their practice in that particular topic. We make them champions. On the training side, we're taking a tiered approach. So we've got sort of a foundational level of learning that we want everyone in the firm to have. But then we recognise that we want champions, experts. I'm not sure we've landed on a term yet, but effectively a next tier up. And those are our ambassadors, those are our people, but like you said, but they will go and spread that amongst their peers. We want them to submit 3 use cases every month into our prompt library. We want them to be speaking at a group meeting once a month. So we set them some metrics. We give them badges, we give them gifts. We have a time bank concept where they get billable credit for the time they spent on the genAI work. So there's a whole range of incentives. And then we've actually got a real expert level of training, which we're still putting together, likely with an external provider, which is for example, some of the partners in our TNTIP practice or my innovation team who really need that advanced level of, well, how do you fine tune, how do you ground, models in different bits of content, etc. So it's multi-layered, the investment in the people. And I guess we haven't even come on to the hiring of new people yet. But.
Is there another question? Sorry. Yeah. There's 2. Okay.
I did a question for the later. So does more AI mean less hours and less people, less lawyers?
That's the big one.
Tricky one's the big one.
He went there.
Why did I get picked for that one? It will certainly mean there is more, definitely more that can be done, right? And I think that's what we're seeing is that the ability, even with a chatbot, for people to get to the crux of what they need to be providing to the client, they're getting there faster. Things like legal research and others are getting much better, much faster. Some of that, and I know it's one of your future questions, but
Potentially.
some of these things are tasks that actually will be done in-house now. So, you know, if you've got a legal team that's got co-counsel and they need a legal research memo on a particular topic, chances are their first cut of that, their first bit of let's just gather in the facts, they will do themselves using that product they have. You know, that's absolutely fine, but then how do they access the judgment and the expertise to apply that to the particular business or the particular transaction and so on? We think they're still going to come to someone like Linklaters to do that. You can say I'm absolutely hedging my answer, but I think the really interesting bit that gets a lot of us excited is when you start looking at things like Copilot and you start looking at all of that data wrangling, summarising, reformatting, rewriting, writing client alerts, turning that into training presentations, being able to go off and deliver that to clients. All of that transforming of information between different formats is not something that clients are charged for. It's not something that they necessarily see, but it takes an awful lot of time up internally, and I think that's true across professional services generally, that transmitting of information. We just think there's going to be a huge acceleration in the ability to do that. It's my favourite demo actually, is taking meeting minutes from a OneNote sort of Teams transcript and saying, do me a 10-slide presentation, add images, and then write speaker notes. I mean, that's really remarkable. And that's just the business of what we do within a law firm, what knowledge teams do.
Alex, do you have a sense of how, or a sense or view or hope for how that GC law firm relationship might change, to the gentleman's original question?
And I think you're right. I suspect that as in-house counsel we will be able to do more of the kind of less complex work ourselves, and so we will have less need of putting that out to external counsel. I think it will also potentially help us give, when we do need help, it will help us give better instructions. We could perhaps do some of the kind of internal due diligence ourselves, particularly if it's sort of around litigation, with some of the tools around sort of summarising, you know, hundreds of emails to see what really happened. I think we can probably do that. So I think it might make for a more fruitful engagement with external counsel. But I also think, you know, how it's going to affect us in-house. I think we will be able to use our lawyers more effectively as a more agile resource, because you don't necessarily have to be that SME. With the tools to assist you, you can at least do a good start on a piece of work, that research, and probably it's good enough. And obviously, if you get thus far and you need external help, then it's still there available for you. But I think it's going to be very exciting in-house for how we're going to be able to deploy our lawyers on various different matters, and it makes it more interesting. I look at our GCO, and a lot of people have been doing contract negotiations for an awfully long time, and I think there are other areas that they might want to move into, privacy or procurement, so there's allied areas which they've come across in their contract negotiation. And I think with your AI assistant, I think it's going to be much more possible. So we're not necessarily going to look at sort of wanting to add more people. I mean, we always want to add more people, but I think we can probably make better use of what we have and make lives more interesting from a work perspective, more complex work. And actually, I was thinking as I was preparing today, I want to start with my slogan is bring back the lunch hour. I can't remember the last time I actually took a lunch hour, and so this, I really, really hope, a bit difficult, the genie's sort of out the bottle, but I really hope that it's going to give people a little bit more time back in their lives, particularly in private practice. It's hard work. Having done it for a while, I would never want to go back. But in-house is getting just as demanding. And so I'm hoping that it's going to free up time for our lawyers to do more interesting work, have more time for their development and their learning.
I suppose the lunch hour one, that is something you could actually measure. You could try and measure that across the organisation.
And lead by example, that's the other thing.
I think there was a question around here, and we're sort of at time, but I want to squeeze it in if we can.
Thank you. It's a question
Make it
for
quick and
David,
pithy.
really. I was fascinated by the reference to AI on the radar when you were talking about personas and agents. I guess one of the big challenges for those of us in the room is, as we start to utilise AI, what is the charging model for it, the investment that's being made in it, clients' perception of value, clients' perception of efficiencies, etc. So I'm just interested in how KPMG are approaching that.
Yeah, and that's a pricing version of this question.
Yeah.
And if there is, are you a pricing expert? Yeah, so we should talk offline. It is the lightning conductor of the existential debate that all professional services organisations are having, which is how is it all going to turn out? Where is the value? Where is the source of value? How do you price for value? For 150 years, we've priced for time and materials as the best proxy you could have for value, right? It's not a great proxy. So how do we get beyond that into talking about how to price? And it is going to, the first thing we can do is take the jobs away that nobody's enjoying, the jobs that we have in our cost base, but which clients are not paying for. And we need to, and then we'll get a margin upside. How the next set of questions is how are our clients' procurement organisations going to behave to us? And I've started talking to them, and as yet they don't know, so they haven't thought about that. I've talked to our competitors. Nobody knows the answer to your question. The delivery, we're going to have a think about our delivery model. So this question of the question that started over there on efficiency and how that shows up. So the story I didn't tell is our head of people in KPMG, his daughter's just entered the workforce at the age of 21, and I think she works for a construction company, but they gave her a job to do on her first day, and she'd done it in an hour using her native, because she's 21, she knows how to use AI. So she finished it by 10 o'clock, but she handed the work in and got into trouble. The fella didn't know what to do with her, for the rest of the day. So then how does she adapt? She started handing in the work at 5 p.m. and going to the cafe or whatever during the day. So when I say we don't really know how our workforces are going, in the micro you can see all of these things. So how is that going to play out, and how do we move to value? These stories are yet to play out. And in amongst all of that, if there are any technology organisations like Google or Microsoft in the room, their business model is blitzkrieg type. This whole idea that technology is democratised, I don't really like, because there's a lot of people excluded from access on it. Point one. So that democratisation thing is hiding it. But what they're really trying to say is, I want to atomise the buying decisions of something that is phenomenally expensive. It's phenomenally expensive stuff, and it's having a huge impact on our environment. So it's expensive in that sense. It's not actually sustainable. And so what they mean is they want everyone to buy it, right? And so your Azure costs are probably going up 25% per annum, right? So then how do you pass that on to clients in some kind of pricing? And so I don't know. There's scenarios that we're thinking about, like how you move more to a licensing type model. You pass on some of these costs. These are all ideas. They are unsolved.